Welcome everybody to today's webinar. My name is Matt Baer with Q4 Launch. Excited you are along for the ride with us today. Today we're going to be diving into our 2015 marketing predictions for the travel industry. So being in the travel industry, being in the marketing space, I'm really excited about some of the things that we're seeing kind of as the future of 2015. Looking a little bit ahead at some things going on in 2016 as well. Most of our time today is going to be spent around talking about what's going on, what we're seeing, what opportunities are out there, what things you need to be paying attention to in your marketing in 2015, and then jumping into hopefully helping you create a game plan. We will make slides available of today's presentation. If you want those, you can send me an email. My email is there on the screen, matt@q4launch.com. We will also be sending a recording out to everyone who has registered. So if you're on this, if you're hearing this, you're going to be getting a recording of today's webinar. It takes us usually a few days to get that together, packaged up, and sent out to you. But we will send that out automatically to everybody who is on today's webinar or who registered for today's webinar. No need to email me to get a copy of that recording. We'll send that out for you. A few other housekeeping things as we move forward together here. If you have any audio issues, I'd recommend turning your speakers up. We have somebody mentioned it to me in the chat panel as we're getting ready to go. I've tested that. The GoToMeeting panel is saying everything's running well, so hopefully you guys are hearing me okay. But if you're not, I'd recommend trying to turn your speaker volume up there a little bit. I'll also try to speak loudly and clearly and not use any of my NASCAR slurs along the way. Well, NASCAR joke for those of you in the South with us. But one other thing, if you do have questions, we love questions. We're going to set aside about 15 minutes at the end of our time together today to answer some of those questions. Drop those in the chat panel as we go throughout our time together here today. Send those over to me, and at the end of the webinar, we will circle back and take a look at some of those questions and get those answered for you. So, without further ado, we are going to dive in and chat about 2015. Hopefully, you are as pumped up for 2015 as we are at Q4 Launch. I was just talking with somebody else here in the office and talking about some things we're seeing in the marketplace, some things going on, some general excitement, and it started off as a really good year. I can't believe we're already on the 21st day of January. That's blowing my mind a little bit. But we're feeling like we've got a great year ahead in the travel industry, and we're excited to be a part of it. We think that we're positioned well as an industry to take advantage of a lot of rising tides, as we say here in the South. So we're going to dive into some of these predictions and get to the chase with prediction number one. It's going to be a good year. And you say, okay, well, that's kind of simple. Like, I get that. So we're going to dive into a few things. But as we do that, if you've got your glass of champagne, feel free to toast 2014, say goodbye, and raise another glass to 2015 and what we're going to be seeing. So some of the things we've seen, I've been traveling a lot, speaking at a lot of conferences. I know I've had a chance to see many of you face-to-face in the last few months, and that's been exciting. Appreciate you all coming up in conferences and saying hi and telling me about some of the things you've learned in past webinars and so forth. So thank you for that to those of you who are on our webinar today, and always love getting out face-to-face and shaking hands. But as we've done that, we've gathered a little bit of data from our different trips, speaking at OH and LA, and seeing some of the executives from AH and LA, the American Hotel and Lodging Association, hearing some of their stats, seeing some other things from Smith Travel Research in the industry. And some of these stats are going to kind of blur the lines between the different areas because it's hard to really get specific stats on different subsegments of the lodging industry. So we're going to look at some bigger trends for the lodging industry as a whole. So hotel occupancy this year is expected to reach 64.8%, which is really exciting. I know many of our properties, many of the properties in the space that we see experience higher occupancy rates by that. I know some people are lower than that as well. It depends heavily on your location and some of the things going on there. But as we look at that stat as a whole for the industry, that's really good, right? 64.8%. We want to see growth in that overall occupancy statistic. And that's what we're expecting to see in 2015. I was looking for the exact stat because I had a note on it from a conference I was at, but I couldn't find the bar graph. But one of the speakers from AH and LA, who I had the opportunity to hear, was talking that those numbers are going to be the highest they have been. That those are exceeding pre-recession numbers, which we're really excited about because it's getting kind of bullish on the whole market of lodging, travel, tourism, also the business side of travel. as we look at that and try to break down, okay, what's going on, what's driving that, it's not just tourism dollars. It's not just individuals, like a couple or an individual traveling for business purposes. But one of the things that surprises us is that specifically noting group bookings are seen as a major factor in that growth, which is really good for people who have a way or have positioned their properties in a way to capitalize on group bookings, whether those are large single properties or you're in the family reunion business. Sorry, I was spacing that word there. But group bookings are seen as a major factor in that growth. So people are traveling, and they're traveling in groups more. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking about millennials later on. And millennials kind of have a bad rep for being kind of isolated by their social media and so forth. But we're seeing a lot of millennials travel in groups. They travel in herds. They're taking vacations, both locally and internationally as groups. There's a growing trend of doing what's called a buddy moon, where you actually bring all of your buddies with you on your honeymoon. So we're seeing a growing trend of that, something that's been kind of coming on for a few years. You may have heard that before. But all of that stems back to this group bookings are on the rise, which is good for those of us who are figuring out ways to position our properties in the mix of group bookings. Destination wedding business is an aspect of that as well. Destination weddings are on the rise. People are spending a little bit more on their wedding. In my opinion, spending probably a little bit more than they should, but that's a whole other thing. And with that, that's a segment of group bookings, and those are on the rise. And figuring out how to tailor our marketing in 2015 to reach those groups and to get more groups, be it weddings, be it family reunions, be it millennials traveling together, whatever that segment of group bookings you're going after, looking at ways to capitalize on that and find ways to reach that. That third bullet point there, new hotel construction is at its fastest pace in years. I looked and looked for some data. I've heard data on this before, but I haven't seen anything in writing that I could actually quote or source for you guys today. So if anybody has data, I'd love for you to share it with me. But specifically in the Charleston market, and as I've been traveling throughout the country, we are seeing new hotels and new apartment buildings going up at alarming rates. I've got a friend who's in the multifamily apartment business, and he was telling me that multifamily apartments are growing at the fastest pace in the history of our country, meaning that new doors are being built in the multifamily apartment space faster than we've ever done before. And I believe we're probably close to there in the hotel industry as well. Hotels, inns, all of that. We're seeing a big shift. Some more mom and pop, people shifting, leaving their corporate career because they're getting a little bit more financially comfortable coming out of the recession. So they're willing to take some risks that they haven't taken in years past. That's putting them into the market, putting them into the more smaller parts of the market, the bed and breakfast, the boutique hotels, the vacation rental managers. We're seeing a lot of growth there, which is getting more competitive. And then on the upper end, we're seeing new hotel construction at such a fast pace, which is exciting. Again, that ties back to people being really bullish, banks being really bullish on the hotel, on the lodging industry. All great news for us. The challenge is, if you look at history and you look at the way we as capitalists see opportunity, the entrepreneurs within us, the entrepreneurs that create America and that make our culture so great, get really pumped up. They get really excited about this stuff, as I am, as many of you are, but then we overbuild. Right? So we overbuild in our excitement because we're all racing to get our hotels built first or our inns built first or start this new vacation rental company. We all overbuild, and then we saturate the market with more inventory than it can bear, more doors than it can bear. And then that forces in 2016, 17, 18, a recovery that brings occupancy back down, brings price back down, and we see this kind of balancing out, this adjustment. So as we're looking at that, and as a lot of these hotels are going to be completed in 2015 that started in 2013, 2014, I believe we're going to see a shift that's going to be a tough year coming in the coming years as supply is significantly increased over where we are today. So what does that mean for us? How do we then, as independent properties or independent vacation rentals or innkeepers, how do we respond to that? And I think that means, okay, we got to focus on this year and making the most we can, but then we've got to get serious about our customers. We got to get serious about reaching our customers, targeting them in a way that keeps them coming back and build brand loyalty between them and our business, so that in late 2015 and 2016, when the new hotel is open down the road, that they're not tempted to stay at the new hotel because they've had such a great experience at our properties. And I think that comes from a loyalty and from a marketing thing. I think you can market to those people in a way that brings them back. Give them a great guest experience while they're there that brings them back, and then stay in front of them with your marketing. So It's going to be a good year. Hold on to that, but at the same time, make sure that you're working into your marketing strategy for 2015 ways to reach those people on an ongoing basis and bring them back. So that's kind of prediction number one. I know there's a lot of small predictions wrapped up into that, but I think that's a really good sign for what's coming. That's something to be looking at ahead, to be a little bit careful of as well. So prediction number two, moving right along here, and this is probably also not a huge surprise to anybody, but the online travel agents, or what we call the OTAs, are taking ground. They're really aggressive about what's going on. Priceline.com's in the news all the time, and we're seeing more and more of that. But Booking.com is very aggressive right now as well. Expedia.com is being very aggressive as well right now. Had a message there about some audio issues potentially, so if you're having any audio issues, I apologize. Hopefully everything is coming through okay for you. But if not, read along with me on the screen, and hopefully that'll all work itself out. But as we're looking at the online travel agency specifically, we're seeing that Priceline is on an acquisition tear, acquiring Boutique, OpenTable, amongst others in the market space. So what that tells me is that, one, they see the future in the industry, obviously, and they're actively investing into the industry, consolidating a lot of the independents out there and pulling them together. I think a lot of that is going to a place of trying to better control the market space. They want to have more control, more access to data, more access to customers, and it's going to be a challenging time to see how some of this shakes out and see where the future of marketing goes, where the future of reaching customers go. We actually have been working with some of our customers lately on how to kind of combat some of the things the OTAs are doing, combat some of the things TripAdvisor is doing to push OTAs ahead of your own opportunities. Some of the things that we see major OTAs doing, like actually bidding on your name, how to overcome some of those things. So there's a lot of strategies within overcoming this dominance or this growth from the online travel agencies, but a lot of it wraps back to them trying to acquire inventory. And I think we see that with the acquisition of Boutique by Priceline, and then integrating Boutique and Booking.com, saying, hey, I don't care if you like it or not, but your inventory essentially is going to be listed on the site. Now, of course, there's always ways to work around that and so forth, but they're pushing people that way. If you've got a boutique website, we're putting your inventory out there. And the more and more they push that way, the more difficult it gets for the independents to really represent themselves the way they want to be represented and bring in the guest and control that guest life cycle. So that kind of ties into what I was talking about just a minute ago with how do we as independent properties kind of fight this battle. And in 2015, you really need to learn how to play their game without being burnt. If you're not participating in it right now, you're pushing it off. That can work. Like we see a lot of properties succeeding without any OTA bookings coming through at all, and that's great. They've built a brand, it's strong, they don't need that. Other properties rely heavily on that. So everybody's kind of in a different place, in a different market, and needs to respond a little bit differently with their strategy. But you've got to learn how to play that game for you. You've got to learn what that means for you. You've got to learn what that means in your market. Is your market strong enough? Is your brand strong enough to ignore them altogether? Maybe, but that's a strategy you've got to think through. Do you need to play the game and do some things with Trip Connect or different AdWords things to make sure you're staying competitive? That might be part of your strategy. But in 2015, really encourage you to think through this part of your strategy and say, okay, what do we need to do to succeed with the online travel agents? And how do we kind of build a buffer around ourselves so they're not taking our business? The last point there is it is more important than ever to have your own branded marketing, or you'll lose control of your customer. I just mentioned this briefly a second ago, but I want to spend a little bit more time on it. As the OTAs are bringing in customers, we love if they bring us a customer we've never had before, right? I mean, that's their purpose. We want them to bring us a booking we wouldn't have gotten on our own. Unfortunately, we see a lot of the OTAs poaching bookings from our customers and saying, we hear this quite a bit, oh, I think I'm on your website. And then they proceed to describe Booking.com to you or one of the other OTA websites, and you're sitting there taking that booking and saying, okay, I know you're not on my website, but you think you are, and that's a problem. And we've heard stories from our customers about their loyal customers. Hey, I've been staying here twice a year for 10 years who are now booking via Booking.com because of the way Booking.com or some of the others position themselves. The customer, who's not as web savvy as you are, doesn't understand that they're not actually on your website, that they're not making a booking directly. And a lot of times there's a lot of stipulations and limitations that that go along with those bookings through those OTAs that you wouldn't have had they booked directly with you. So it's going to be a challenging time from a customer service perspective to educate that consumer or that customer about what's actually happening there, about what a booking via Priceline or Booking.com means versus booking directly with you, communicating that value proposition to them and getting them to come back and make that booking directly. The last thing we want to do is have our loyal guests start booking on third-party OTAs, because every time they take that booking, we're going to pay them that commission, and the fact that it's a loyal guest that's booked with us 10 times before means nothing to them. They don't care. They're not going to exclude that person from their fee structure. But they have their marketing is much better than most of ours, much more aggressive. They've got bigger budgets, so they're getting in the way. They're getting between us and our customers, and we have to take some of that ground back. We have to not just sit back and say, okay, I'm going to accept that. We've got to do our own marketing as a group and say, okay, I'm going to build my brand and I'm going to build my marketing so that I can reach my customer and not let the OTA get between you and your customers. So as we look ahead at 2015 to recap, we're going to see the OTAs really aggressive. We're going to see them continuing to try to take ground, continuing to acquire inventory. I don't mean buying websites, but I mean trying to get your inventory on their sites as much as possible. But we've got to learn how to play that game and build our own marketing strategy so that we succeed despite the added aggressiveness from the OTAs. Prediction number 3, where could we be in a 2015 marketing prediction without talking about the sharing economy? We believe the sharing economy will continue to gain market share, which a lot of people see as a threat, but at the same time I see some opportunities that lie within that. And I want to talk about some of those opportunities as well. A few stats just to kind of bring you up to speed on some things we're seeing from the sharing economy. One that we look at because we believe it kind of shows where the market is going, or shows where the money in the space at least is going, is that venture capital investment in sharing sites or sharing economy sites is at an all-time high. So that tells me a couple things. One, it tells me that investors are very bullish on sharing economy and what's going on there. Everybody wants to be investing in the next Uber, right? I mean, everybody's there. We would all love to be investing in the next Uber or love to be the next Uber. But that also tells me with this huge spike in VC money going into it that we may see a bubble in this whole sharing economy thing. I mean, it kind of brings back the dot-com bubble where valuations were crazy and the social media side of things, where we saw an initial bubble in social media, but then it has rebounded really strongly from a valuation perspective. So some interesting opportunities to see from a financial perspective there. But as we look at that, I think we might be getting into a little bit of a bubblish state with sharing economy, but I think we're also, which is kind of contradictory, but also going to continue to see strong growth and market share going to some of these sharing economy sites. A couple stats there, but Uber just received a $1.2 billion investment, which had a valuation of $41 billion. So I don't know all the details of that, but just doing some quick math, a group of investors invested $1 billion into Uber, and for their $1 billion got 2.5% ownership of Uber. So if you just do that quick math, $1 billion, $41 billion investment, they got 2.5% of the company for $1 billion. I don't know if that's exactly how it worked out, but if you do that quick math, I'm not an investment banker, so you feel free to correct me if I'm wrong in how I'm doing that, but that's the way I see that. That's how I see what's going on there, which the fact that Uber is valued at $41 billion is crazy to me. But when you think about their market adoption, how many people are using them, it's a huge opportunity. Warren Buffett has also publicly come out and endorsed Airbnb. There's been rumors that he's invested. I was looking for some news to actually kind of substantiate that, but I haven't seen anything besides rumors around. There may be an announcement out that I missed, but I looked for that. But he did endorse Airbnb for his annual shareholder meeting of Berkshire Hathaway. Ahead of that meeting, knowing that hotels all jack up their prices for people coming to those meetings, he really encouraged people to check out Airbnb as a great option when coming for his shareholder meeting. So to see a name like Warren Buffett get behind a site and to see that come out and say, okay, I want my investors in my Berkshire Hathaway to stay at these Airbnb properties, immediately gave a ton of credibility to what a lot of people have been trying to throw under the bus as sketchy, not credible, not inspected, all these other things. But things like that, things like governments getting behind it, like the World Cup getting behind it and asking Airbnb to step in and fill the gaps. A lot of these types of things give a lot of credibility to the site and building credibility around this host concept. And this host concept is one of the things I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about, because I think it's one of the exciting opportunities that we have as an industry of independent properties to get excited about what's going on with Airbnb's marketing. A lot of us see them as threats, and people get, some of the shows we've been at, people get a little bit, their feathers go up, if you will, when we start talking about Airbnb, and they are a potential threat from a market share perspective. But what I love about what they're doing is they're trying to make the lodging more personal, more about experiences. So you're seeing a lot of marketing wrapped around this experience using this hashtag One Less Stranger campaign. There's some really neat videos out that they've done telling stories about their hosts with guests that stayed and the experiences that they're having and how it's so much more than what you get at a hotel. And that's us, y'all. Like, that is us in a nutshell. We are the hosts. And Airbnb is making that mainstream again. I think a lot of people sometimes aren't sure about independent properties because of that more host-style nature. And I know what I'm going to get from a Marriott, but I don't know what I'm going to get when I go independent. So there's a little bit of potential negativity around that. But I think one of the advantages of Airbnb and their marketing that's going to help all of us is this hosts are making a rebound as they push marketing that direction. And I love this One Less Stranger campaign. The agency that came up with this, I'm sure they got paid buku bucks, but great campaign. Love the way they're wrapping it around. And I think there may even be some ways that we need to play off of this as an industry to tell our stories and tell our stories about how we're independent, maybe play up the host nature of our businesses. Even though we may not list our inventory on Airbnb, we can still talk about the fact that we are your hosts. And use that as an asset in our marketing. So as we look ahead at 2015, we're looking at ways to make marketing more personal, to capitalize on this trend. Is that using a One Less Stranger tag? Is that posting pictures of us with our guests? Some of those things are going to shake themselves out, and the answers are a little different for everybody. But I'd really encourage you, as you're looking ahead as you're looking at your marketing plan for 2015, how do you make it a little bit more personal? How do you capitalize on this One Less Stranger mentality, this big push Airbnb is making, and leverage their marketing to work for you? You can't spend marketing on them or like they're spending, because you don't have the venture capital probably that they have, but you can jump on the back of their marketing and find ways to leverage it for yourself to build a following and get attention. So you don't want to leverage it so much that it looks like you're just part of Airbnb, but you want to find ways to use that host mentality to kind of leverage into the mix of what you're doing. So encourage you, as you're looking ahead at 2015, look at ways to personalize your marketing and capitalize on this trend. Prediction number 4, brands will continue to grow as publishers. You've heard us talk a lot about blogging, about content creation. Got some statistics we're going to share with you today about content marketing that I'm excited about, showing the transition that's happening in the industry. But if you are not considering yourself a publisher, if you're not telling stories via your blog, you're missing an opportunity. And the bad news is that opportunity is not a new opportunity. But brands are publishing more content than ever, which is exciting. It's cool to see some of the content that's coming out, great content coming out. There's also some really bad content coming out. The good news is if you commit to doing this well, you can succeed and outposition yourself, because it's very time-consuming. It's very difficult to do. But when we're looking at the overall scope of marketing, and I'm not talking about as a part of internet marketing, I want to break that down. I'm talking about all marketing, advertising. As we look at that statistically, all the search terms that we looked at, content marketing is the fastest growing form of marketing. It has the greatest increase in searches in the last 2 years from Google across any other marketing. Now, it's not the largest segment of marketing, but it's the fastest growing segment of marketing. It's growing faster and is larger than internet marketing. It gets 25% more Google searches than internet marketing. So a lot of companies used to think, hey, we're an internet marketing company, if you will. That describes what we do. A lot of people are moving from that terminology to terminology like content marketing, which is not just a change in terminology, but it's a change in the way you approach marketing completely. And it's a pretty cool opportunity that if you're not a part of it, I encourage you to check out. There's the Content Marketing Institute. There's HubSpot, who has coined the term inbound marketing. So you see that terminology used a lot. Those two are kind of at war with each other on which of those two terms is going to win that battle. But very similar. There's some differences in those strategies for sure. Some people believe inbound marketing is a part of content marketing, but some similarities there. But it goes down to creating great quality content that people want to read and building your brand as a publisher. And as you're looking at doing these things, as you see the opportunity, because it's growing so fast, you need to be looking at creating engaging blog content. And I don't mean just writing a 200-word post. Like we've taught several times on how to write great blog posts, but you've got to do 500 to 700 words. You've got to make sure it's keyword focused. It's stuff that people are actually looking for, information people are actually looking for, which Google will tell you all that through their keyword planner. And then create the content around it and publish that to your website. And once you get it up on your site and you've written a great blog post and it's optimized, you're not done. Now you've got to promote it, right? So you create all this, you put all the work into it, don't fall short on the promotion piece. Develop a plan to promote your content, but share it via social media. Push it regularly via email marketing. Make sure that you're doing those things that are going to help get eyeballs on your content. And from time to time, when you do that well and you get kind of that magic niche, something's going to go viral for you, which is an opportunity to get your brand, your inn, your vacation rental company, your lodging business in front of a lot of people in a short amount of time. Now, it doesn't happen all the time, but we're going to look at a case study kind of on how it can happen and what went into making that happen, just in about the timeline of a week, how that happens and what was done as a result of it. So awesome opportunity. And then tell the story. Telling your story via your blog through content marketing helps make sure that you're getting media attention as well. So as the media is looking for stories constantly, and a lot of people I know have PR people and so forth working with them, and that's great. But as the media is looking for stories, they're Googling things too. And if they find you and you're telling a story, you've made it easy for them to give you attention, which is a great byproduct of good content marketing, is that the media will find you and pick up those stories from time to time and feature you in those stories, which is an exciting opportunity. So in 2015, to recap, we're going to see brands continuing to grow as publishers. We believe that content marketing space is going to continue to grow. It's going to get more competitive, which means the quality of what you're producing has to get higher as well. So let's take a minute and dive into a week in the life of a viral blog post. So this is a blog post that we kind of followed for the course of a week, ended up going viral in social media, and we're going to talk through some of these stats, and then we're going to show you kind of a screenshot of some of the Facebook stats to go with this here in a minute. But on Monday, the blog, and before I dive into this, there is a whole full write-up on this on our website, q4launch.com/blog. If you go there, you'll see a full write-up on how all this went, so there's more detail there. If you follow our blog, you've probably already seen this. You may have seen it in the newsletter we send out as well. So this may be old information, some of you who follow us on a regular basis. But on Monday, the blog was posted on the Facebook page around 9 a.m. featuring a large appealing image, right? An appealing image that created an emotional connection to the story and made people want to click it. It caught your attention if it showed up in your newsfeed. On Tuesday, we received 6,542 clicks back to the website to read that blog post, and about 9,000 views and 40 shares on Facebook. So we see the 9,000 views on Facebook, the 40 shares starting to push this to that viral nature. Wednesday, we saw 7,562 clicks back to the website. Starting to see this crazy traction being generated on this blog, we went back to the blog and reformatted it to get lead generation right out front. So we put a lead generation CTA, means call to action. So getting that information out, this blog was featured on the West Coast, so on the East Coast we were actually a little bit ahead of some time things. But at 2 p.m. Eastern time, we were able to go back and kind of configure this blog to get some lead generation elements built into it. Thursday, we had another 4,433 clicks back to the website. New CTA was entered into the blog post. We also, at this point, saw the Facebook post starting to slow down a little bit, so we brought $5, right? That's it, $5 alongside this and boosted the post on Facebook to kind of extend that timeline of viral nature of it going out. And then the lead generation tool was posted and boosted as well. So seeing that we had all this traction on our Facebook page, we know that whatever we put on our Facebook page next is going to have a much larger audience than it typically does. So we use that opportunity to get our lead generation message in front of more people than we normally would. So our next social media post we put up was very important to think about as well. So that's what we're talking about, where that lead generation tool is also posted and boosted on social media. Friday, another 2,350 clicks. Saturday, 1,492. Sunday, 1,202. So you're starting to see that traffic drop off pretty significantly. But in the course of a week, that blog post that we created, promoted it on Facebook, got 25,699 clicks back to the website. Really exciting opportunity. I mean, you don't see traffic coming like that. I mean, that traffic exceeds like being featured on a reality TV show. Even customers we've had that have been featured on reality TV shows haven't seen that type of traffic come from those opportunities. So that doesn't happen all the time, but when it does happen, when you're building the content right, when you have a strategy in place to see that, take care of that, or take advantage of that, you can really do really well with content marketing. Here's a quick screenshot of how that performed in social media. Reached a total of 33,000 people in social media. Really big opportunity and big results that we saw coming from that post. But this is an example of the way people are digesting content, the way they're finding content. Notice none of that traffic I'm talking about was organic search traffic. That's a whole nother thing. This is just people finding it via social media. And as we look ahead at 2015, that's one of the things we think is changing in social media as well, is that people are using social media to discover content in ways they haven't before. Traditionally, it's been primarily an organic thing. Some people have used sites like StumbleUpon. A lot of people use sites like StumbleUpon. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of traffic there. But people are starting to find content in social media. You're probably seeing this trend yourself, just with stories popping up in your news feed. Stories like, this just happened and you won't believe what happens next, or this baby just spit up some food and you won't believe what they do next. Some of it's really silly like that, but there's also opportunity to get your story about planning a great vacation to your area in front of those people and to craft that message with a great, large, appealing image to drive traffic back to your website and get people thinking about planning a vacation, get people dreaming about planning that vacation to your area. So prediction number 5, we're going to talk a little bit about social media. Not a lot. A lot of people are pretty familiar with social media, but we believe that in 2015, social media will increasingly become a pay-to-play platform. One of the great things everyone's always said about social media is, oh, it's free advertising. You just have to build your audience. Well, that was true for a while. I mean, yeah, there was still a cost of time and money to build your audience. But now you've built your audience, and Facebook continues to roll out updates that throttle or limit the amount of your own following that you can reach. So you've worked so hard to build this following in social media, Facebook, whichever platform you're focused on. And Facebook's probably the worst of it right now, but as far as throttling your reach. But you've got 10,000 people following you, but then they're limiting your ability to maybe reach 500, 1,000 of those 10,000 people if you're lucky. 5 to 10% of those people you're able to reach with an individual post. And they're doing that because they're a public company now. They want to drive revenue. They know that they have something that's valuable. They've got people's attention and people's time. Everybody, all the marketers want to reach those people, and they know that they can kind of hold those people hostage and force you to spend some money. So you go through all the work of building that following, and then you got to spend money to reach the following you already built. It seems kind of silly. I know people get frustrated about it, but it's not going anywhere. It's not going to change. You can be as frustrated as you want to be, but platforms are going to continue to move more this way as profit pressure increases. As we've got to, they have to make their market estimates or whatever. You've got to be figuring out within your strategy, how are we going to pay to play? How are we going to balance this? What's working? What's not? What's worth it? What's not? But look at boosted posts as a part of your social media strategy and how that ties into your content strategy. So maybe it's that when a post starts to go viral, you boost it then so that you're putting resources behind something you already know is getting traction. That's what we did in that example I gave you earlier. But if you want to reach people in this platform, if you want to find people and get them dreaming about taking a vacation to your area, you've got to be willing to pay to play a little bit in the social media space. Prediction number 6, Google will continue to change the rules. In 2014, we saw a lot of changes in the rules. At the beginning of 2015, we're already starting to see the next kind of wave of that coming. I know a lot of you were kind of on some of the webinars we had previously done about some of those changes that we were seeing in Google and what's going on, and we do our best to keep you up to date there via our blog and via the webinars that we're doing. But Hummingbird had a lot of people really hard in 2014. And there's a lot of other changes we could take. I spent a lot of time talking about. Excuse me there. Let me get back that slide. In 2014, we saw some major shifts in the search results, the way they present information, the way they're trying to understand what's going on. In 2015, we're expecting those shifts to continue as Google is looking to better understand the context and the meaning of different searches. So context and meaning are what a lot of people are talking about. Google wants to understand not just the words you're searching for, but what is it that you really want if you're searching for those terms. For example, I think it was last weekend, I searched NFL playoff schedule. Now, they are trying to understand the meaning of that, right? Do I, as a consumer, searching that on a Sunday morning, actually care about the entire schedule for the entire NFL season that morning? No, absolutely not. I don't care at all about it. The season is essentially over. What I care about is what time is my game today. I'm not going to cry about it today, but I'm a Packers fan and had a pretty devastating day on Sunday. If anybody saw the game, you can mourn with me on that. But they knew that I would probably looking for the fact that there's 2 games today and what time are they coming on. So they were able to serve me content, serve me information based on the context and meaning behind my search. It was much more relevant to me than a lot of other things would have been that they could have served up. They could have served me NFL.com/schedule that showed me that whole schedule for the year. Wouldn't have helped me. I just needed to know what time and what channel were the games on today. Excuse me, there, I got a little tickle in my throat. So that's a big shift. And as they do that, Google's looking to keep people on their platform, right? So a lot of what they're doing is changing the way search results are presented so people don't actually have to click through to sites anymore. A few years ago, I might have had to actually click through to NFL.com to find that information. But now that information shows up right within the search results. So I didn't have to click anywhere. I searched that on my mobile phone. The information was right there. I texted my buddies immediately and said, hey, let's meet here at this time to watch the game. I didn't go to any pages. I didn't go to anybody's website. So what traffic that normally would have gone to a website, the opportunity NFL would have got to advertise something to me is now gone for them because Google is putting that information right out in front of them. So you see a dip in traffic sometimes because of Google making changes like that. So that could change search volume that we're seeing in this. We also see major changes in the map with the Hummingbird update that came out and the way they're shifting that, which is making it more and more difficult for us independents to kind of compete against the bigger guys, the TripAdvisors, the OTAs who have that space. The map was kind of always our place to win from a search perspective, and that was where we wanted to be. If Google keeps pushing that map away and moving away from it, it's going to get increasingly challenging for the independent property to really succeed in that mix. Google has also started sending out mobile usability warnings. So through Webmaster Tools, and hopefully none of you received one, which would be a good thing if you don't, but if your site's not mobile optimized, they're sending out notifications now saying mobile usability warning, fix your site or we might drop you. Now, what everybody thinks that really means is that there's a new mobile algorithm coming soon and that the way search results are going to be displayed for mobile is going to be very different. Google added that tag to the beginning of a search result this year that says, is this site mobile friendly or not? We know that. We believe that was a part of a change. And then this mobile usability warning thing coming, we believe there's more changes coming specifically in that new mobile algorithm for Google to display information to the mobile user. They're also giving a lot of weight to these OTAs in search results, so pushing traffic to OTAs because then they get an opportunity to have a commission share with that OTA if you click and actually book. So it's all changing all the time. It's all about trying to own traffic, own the customer, and get that revenue. Excuse me. But you've got to keep an eye on that. You've got to keep an eye on the different search tools that are popping up to search for hotels and things and see where you need to be in that mix. You've got to keep an eye on the way Google's displaying those search results. They've done away with the carousel that used to be at the top that they were testing for a while. So lots of changes in the mix. We also see a big change in voice search. I believe that's playing an increasing role. More and more people voice searching. You're seeing TV ads from Google where they're actually showing people using voice search. They don't do that on accident. They do that because they're trying to train the consumer in the future of the way they want them to behave. So knowing that, seeing that they're investing advertising dollars to push it, a lot of, Domino's just rolled out their mobile app with voice ordering. A lot of people are moving to this voice side of things, and we have to keep an eye on that as marketers to say, how do we position ourselves? How does search going to change and we get our information in front of customers? How do we change the way we think about keywords traditionally to respond to this voice search? Because people typically don't speak the same way they write, and we've got to start changing the way we're thinking about keywords to reach those people as well. And the last bullet there, it's a little bit cut off, but you have to stay on top of Google. You have to stay on top of what's going on with Google because it's responsible for 30 to 40% of your traffic. Most websites we see, we're in a ton of analytics every day. Google is responsible for 30 to 40% of the traffic to your website. So if that's 40% of where your business is coming from, 40% of your revenue that they are in some way, shape, or form driving, touching, controlling, you got to stay on top of what's going on there, and we'll do our best this year to keep you in the loop with webinars and different opportunities. Going to have to knock through these last couple here pretty quickly as it's 2:40. But prediction number 7, millennials are going to start traveling and spending more. We got a lot of millennials on staff here at Q4 Launch. A lot of people have asked us to speak on this topic and millennials and how to reach them and so forth. And it's something we're really excited about because just speaking personally for a minute, I'm starting to see my generation, our friends, our groups traveling more and spending more when they travel. I just actually was going with several friends to one of the properties we represent several months ago, and on the way up there, and I wasn't goading this conversation along. I get a great opportunity to have consumer research in these conversations, but the conversation was centered around the fact that, you know what, I'm getting to that place in life where I'm starting to finally understand, like, financially we're getting there a little bit. We're getting comfortable. Our corporate job or the bank job we have, whatever, is starting to pay enough that I'm tired of doing travel on the cheap, right? I'm tired of I'm cheaping out on everything. I'm ready to spend a little bit more money. I'm ready to spend money on that experience of having a great travel experience. So they're moving away from always thinking cheap, 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 and they're starting to think a little bit more about, time is limited, time is precious. How do I get the most out of this time that I have? And I'm willing to spend a little bit more to do it because I'm making more now as a consumer. So they've come out of that stage where they grew up in their careers through this recession. They're coming out of that, starting to see what it's like on the other side, and they're spending more money. They're also traveling in groups. I just mentioned I was traveling in a group to go see one of our properties, not to go for work, but just to go for an experience and take in some people along with me. We were going to go and make a whole weekend of it, had a great time. But that's the way we're starting to see millennials move. They're starting to spend a little bit more because they're getting more comfortable. They're establishing themselves and their families, and they're traveling in groups at the same time. So we've got to look ahead at 2015 and cater our marketing to the millennial market a little bit. Make sure that what we're pushing out marketing-wise is appealing to that 35-year-old traveler. If we appeal to the 35-year-old traveler, we won't turn off the 65-year-old traveler. But if we build marketing that appeals to the 65-year-old traveler, we will likely turn off the 35-year-old traveler. This makes so much common sense, but a good friend of mine, Jay Karen, kind of said that to me at one point. I was like, you know what, Jay, that makes so much sense. Like, that's perfect. And I've kind of used that several times since then to kind of sum up the way marketing needs to look and feel. You got to reach that 35 traveler. You won't lose your 65-year-old traveler if you do. Within that, you heard me say it a minute ago, but sell the experience, not the room. It's not about a room with a bed and curtains and a shower. It's about the experience wrapped around that. And some of the photographers we work with do a beautiful job of capturing the experience of staying in a property. We've talked a lot about photography at different points. But as you're looking at your marketing, sell that experience, not the room. The room is kind of the black and white, or the property is the black and white of what's there. But the experience is what they're going to remember. They're going to remember sitting around the campfire and having s'mores and wine or whatever with their friends. They're going to tell those stories. They're not going to tell the story about the fact that the room had a queen-size bed and comfy sheets, like whatever. They're going to talk about what they did while they were there and those types of things. And then make your property tech-friendly, right? I mean, the millennial traveler is so connected to everything, and I love that some of us want to disconnect them from that when they get to the property. That's great. That's valid. I love going to properties that don't have TVs in the room, but at the same time, if we want to reach the millennial traveler, we got to look the part a little bit, right? So make sure you've got the amenities they're expecting: high-speed Wi-Fi, easily accessible outlets, modern amenities. Don't make it hard on people to stay at your property. So just look at different ways to make things tech-friendly and speed. Speed is an issue as well. You got to make it quick for them because they're moving very, very quickly. I want a lot of them to slow down. I like to slow down sometimes, but as a generation and as a culture, we're moving quicker than we ever have before. So you've got to find ways to accommodate that while at the same time not giving up who you are and what makes you independent. So if you serve a full gourmet breakfast at your property, that's awesome, but you may also want to have a fast option available for the business traveler or the millennial traveler who really just wants to get up and hit the trails that morning and not wait till 8:30 to have a full sit-down heavy breakfast. So think about your travelers, think about ways to make their life easier, and you'll have an opportunity to reach more of them, specifically the millennial travelers. More mobile booking will become more mainstream. We're seeing this, lots of data out there on this. Not going to hit on, spend a lot of time here either, but mobile network speeds are significantly faster than they were just a few years ago. In 2013, mobile network connection speeds specifically doubled over 2012. So huge increases in speed lead to more people using the platforms. Mobile and tablet traffic doubled in 2014 over 2013 as a result of some of that connection speed stuff improving. Mobile booking revenue is anticipated to increase from $1 billion in 2011 to $40 billion in 2014. That's a little contrary to some data that we've seen from Google saying people are still going to a desktop environment to actually make their booking, but you're seeing more and more mobile connected people all the time and making last-minute bookings on mobile devices. So think about how to incorporate that. And then real quickly, you've got to make sure your mobile booking engine is mobile optimized. Or excuse me, your booking engine is mobile optimized. If you should have gone through by now the mobile booking process on your phone to see what it's like for a customer. If it's hard for you, it's hard for your customer, you need to make a change. If your booking engine is still telling you that, oh, we're going to get it, it's time to make a change. There's some great booking engines out there, great property management systems out there, but if yours hasn't adapted to that yet, chances are they're moving a little bit slower than you need them to, and I'd highly encourage you to look at some other options. So that's kind of the end of our predictions today. One of the things that I get asked a lot when we do presentations, specifically more so in person, but man, that was a ton of information. I loved it, but what do I do next? Like, what's the next step for me? I'm a little bit overwhelmed. So we never want people to go away feeling overwhelmed, so we always want to help you take your next steps. So as we're looking at that, and if you're thinking, okay, wow, great information, but how do I take that next step? One of the things that our staff is going to offer to everybody who registered for the webinar today, and you have to be patient with us to coordinate it, but it's a marketing prediction grader. So we'll say, okay, based on these predictions we've talked about, we'll go through each of those predictions for you and your marketing, at least best we can tell. I mean, we can't always see your email and things like that, but best we can tell, we'll see how you're grading on a score of 0 to 100 and say, hey, you're doing really well in these 4 areas, but you need some improvement in these 4 areas. We'll help you kind of unpack that and develop some priorities because we want to see all of us as an independent group in the lodging industry, that rising tide thing. If we can help everybody do a little bit better, give you some information to help you succeed in 2015, it helps all of us succeed in 2015. So making that available for you for free. We'll get you that marketing prediction grader. After the webinar, we'll also send out a follow-up email with some information. You can just request that through our website. There will be a link to a form, super easy for you. So if you're in that place, great information, but man, how do I get started? How do I take some next steps? This is a great place for you to go, get some great information, and take some guided next steps through that. So now we're going to take some time for Q&A. It's just after 2:45 Eastern time here. So I've seen a few questions pop in that chat panel. I'm going to click in here and take some of those, and we will dive into that. So give me just a sec here, and we will start looking through some of these questions. All right. First question, are slides available? Absolutely. Slides are available for those of you who might have logged in a little bit after. We will send an email out to everybody who attended with a recording of the webinar today, but also with a copy of the slides so that you can see those and recap those. A question from June. What are the downsides of me as a licensed bed and breakfast listing on Airbnb? Why not? Downsides would be, it's a great question. Inventory availability, like if that's at all an issue, but if you need more bookings and you kind of run a risk sometimes of double booking if you're an area that you get a lot of bookings because there's not really a sync between the two inventory systems yet, so that's a potential downside, but something that we consider a small downside because you can always usually rectify that with your customer. You also have the opportunity to review bookings before they come in, so it's actually an inquiry that comes in or a request. It's not an actual booking, so you have the opportunity to turn those bookings down at that point. We think that's going to run into some problems at some point, that whole process of being able to turn a booking down. But it hasn't led to that yet, but it will at some point. I think the other thing that some people say is I just don't want to support that. So I don't want to support the direction that's going as an economy. I don't want to lose control of my customer experience. So that's a potential downside, giving up some of that. If you're looking to kind of get started, we'd recommend maybe listing one room and starting out with that. Some of the other downsides we've heard is potentially the quality of guests. I don't necessarily agree with that potential downside. You always have a quality of guests. That's always up in the air a bit. But as a whole, Airbnb guests are not low income, bad guests. Not that low income necessarily means a bad guest, but they're not the kind of guests that are going to trash your property necessarily. Of course, there are always stories about such things, but you've got to just look at that, make a decision that works with your property. I have another question here about mobile booking from Heather. Concerning mobile booking, it anecdotally seems that travelers will look online with their phone but will call to make a reservation because it's too tedious to complete a reservation on the small screen. What do you think? I think that yes, a lot of people will look on their phone but will call to make a reservation because it is a tedious process. But I also think that as technology improves and some autofill functions improve on mobile devices, which we're seeing now, I used to I would shop for some stuff online on a phone, but I've never actually purchased it. My consumer behavior has started changing just with e-commerce transactions on mobile devices because it's getting easier and easier. Phones are getting better. The technology is getting better. So I think there will be a segment of the market that continues to call just like there is for desktop-based bookings. But I think there's also going to be a growing segment of the market that will complete a reservation on the small screen on the mobile device. I think that 1 billion to 40 billion number shows a strong trend that direction. So you got to get on top of it. Yes, people will call, but yes, they will make a booking online as well. And you've got to get on top of making sure your mobile booking engine is set up for that and is getting that information, gathering that information in a consistent manner. Comment here from Brad. Great presentation, very useful. Thank you. Thanks, Brad. Appreciate the comment as well. See if we can find some more questions here. Question from Mary. After the blog goes out, what does CMT stand for in the next step? I don't know, Mary. I'm not sure what step you're talking about there. I don't remember the abbreviation CMT. CTA is an abbreviation for call to action. So making sure that you have that. Let me look back at my slides here. I may have confused myself with my own abbreviations. But CTA, if that would be the abbreviation, would mean call to action. So just making sure that you have a call to action in front of those people. I'm not, again, seeing the CMT abbreviation. So hope you may have just meant CTA there. Question from Debbie. Don't you think at breakfast, if a guest says, I booked through Airbnb, it makes sure other guests wonder why are they paying less and opens many other aspects? Well, first of all, I don't think just because a guest booked via Airbnb that they should be paying less. I think that if you're going to list your inventory on Airbnb, I wouldn't price it for less. A lot of people that list their bookings on OTAs, not necessarily Airbnb, but any OTA, actually put the price higher than they would if you booked directly on your own website. So I wouldn't necessarily assume that just because someone said they booked on Airbnb that they paid less. Things come up with guests all the time. I mean, you've got the same thing about a Groupon. What if a guest, and then in case of a Groupon, they paid less. It's a very valid question, Debbie, but I don't think, one, you should price your property less on Airbnb It's the same quality property. It's the same quality experience. You should demand the same price, and I think you're going to find that there's consumers on Airbnb who are willing to pay a premium price for a premium experience. It's not all about cheap travel. There are travelers who are wanting that premium experience. So I would position yourself as that premium experience in the mix. Use your description to talk about that premium experience, that it's a full gourmet breakfast if you do that, which I assume you do based on the fact that you're talking about a seated breakfast. But getting that information in front of them and then not just assuming that other guests are going to wonder if they pay less. But they're going to, guests are going to say stuff that makes other guests wonder all the time. If they book a certain package, well, did they pay less? Did they get a better deal? If they book a Groupon, whatever, there's always going to be that aspect to it. Now, you don't want to tell them that just because they booked on Airbnb, they actually paid more either. So you got to balance that a little bit as a business owner to figure that information out. So, a question from Jeff about the marketing prediction grader. Absolutely, I'll be sending an email out after this with a link to that. So if you have any questions on that, you can get that information there. But again, it will go through all of those predictions for you and kind of give you some action steps you can take, and we'll review that information with you. So it's meant to just be a tool to kind of help you plan your marketing out in some of these key areas you need to be looking at going ahead into 2015. Excuse me there. So happy to stick around for a few more minutes, answer some questions. If not, we look forward to connecting with y'all. Here's another question from Christy. What is the percentage of B&Bs who use Airbnb to those who dislike, don't use Airbnb? That is a loaded question, and honestly, if we get into that, dislike on Airbnb, we're going to be here a long time. But it's different for everybody. You've got to look at it in your market space and say, okay, does it have a lot of traction in my market space? Does it not have a lot of traction in my market space? Are my competitors in that? Do I need to be there? Do I not need to be there? And make a decision and see what works for you. I've heard generally positive comments from people that are using it. I have yet to have anyone tell me a horror story about using Airbnb and having a horrible experience. So I can't comment on percentages, but I've yet to hear anybody have a terrible experience doing it. You Google it, and I'm sure you'll find some, but that's like anything. You get enough people using something, somebody's going to have a bad experience. So, but good questions, absolutely. So. Any other questions that I can answer for people? Happy to spend a few more minutes here answering questions. If not, it's been great. Appreciate you all being with us today. Thanks for attending. Hope you got some great information that you can put to work in your marketing strategy as you're working into 2015. And best of luck with all your marketing. If there's anything we can do, anything I can do, any questions you haven't asked, feel free to send me an email with those, and we will get that information for you. Thanks again, everybody. Great talking to you. And look forward to talking to you again soon. Stay tuned for information on our February webinar, and check us out on our blog for more information on some of these topics, more in-depth information on some of these topics.